Start streaming so I don't forget that. That's looking good.
Oh, my
Um,
quality looks better, doesn't it?
yeah, it looks a lot better. Yeah, it just probably was like Discord, like figuring out what's best for you. Um,
Discord always knows what's best for me.
Discord knows what's best. Yeah. All right, I got the rundown over here, and then I just need to hit record there. I think we're good. Let's give it a shot. Let's see if this works. All right, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's go in 5, 4, 3. It's the internet. You're busy. Let's do this. Welcome to the GamesBeat Decides podcast. This is the podcast where we decide everything about the world of games so you don't have to think for yourself. I'm your host, Jeffrey Grubb. With me is
Mike Minotti.
there he is, Mike Minotti, everybody. I'm very excited to hang out with Mike. He's got
Are
a
you?
new setup. He's in his kitchen. He's wearing
Oh
a
yeah.
Empire Strikes Back shirt. He's got a
Oh,
Rocketeer
I've had
poster you
this
guys
shirt
can't
forever.
see.
Oh, the
Uh,
Rocketeer poster's good though. You want me to tilt for a second?
yeah. Let's tilt for a
Yeah.
second. There.
There you go.
That's good stuff, actually. I like that a
Yeah,
lot.
it's actually like a poster for that flying circus that he's involved with.
Yes, that
I
is very much my jam. That movie's very
Mhm.
good.
I
Um,
love that movie.
yes.
That's why I have a poster of it in my kitchen. Yeah.
I figured you probably have one in every room in the house, so I just assumed
Just
that.
two, just here in my
Just the two.
bedroom.
Okay.
Just two of them.
uh,
I have some Rocketeer coasters in the living room.
There you go.
So that's something.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you should just bite the bullet and do the whole theme, the whole house,
At this
just
point
Rocketeer
now.
stuff. We're going to talk about news. We're going to talk about games. First, though, I want to thank you for joining us. You can get more from Mike and me at GamesBeat.com. If you have something to share with us, email the podcast at gamespluspodcast@venturebeat.com. Thank you to Carlos Ayin and Sane in the Rain Music on YouTube for the use of our theme song. And if you're listening to this on the website player widget, or if you're watching this on YouTube or Twitch, you could subscribe to the audio version of the show on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, anywhere where pods are caught. And if you like the show, rate us on the app you're using. It tends to help people find it, or you could tell a friend. That also helps. All right, Mike. So not quite as busy of a week this week as last week, but there's still some stuff was happening, and the biggest thing to me is Nintendo started to talk again. They did a Nintendo Indie World, and I thought it was a
Yeah.
really good show. What was your takeaway from that?
My my initial takeaway was like, it was fine. And then you kind of talked me into believing that, yeah, actually, that was pretty good. I mean, I had no reason for not thinking it was better, except for, I guess, it wasn't necessarily like the kind of indie games that I would go crazy for. Part of it, too, was like I was just really specifically hoping for one game, Hollow Knight Silk Song, to maybe get a
Right.
release date or something. And, that's on me. But yeah, when I thought about it, like, yeah, they announced a lot of things. They had a lot of shadow drops. That was the big takeaway. There was a lot of things like, yeah, this is out right now, by the way. So that was pretty cool. Especially like Spirit Fair is like the one I am pretty excited about, and I want to try that real soon. But yeah, there was plenty of stuff there that looked interesting. Hades, the next game from the Bastion people. That's the one that looks the most like Bastion 2. So I think that'll be fun. But yeah, there's plenty there.
So I'm not sure if I'm going to get them all right, but among the games that dropped that day of the Nintendo Indie World, it was Raji and Ancient Epic was like kind of like an isometric Prince of Persia sort of wall running game. Spirit Fair, which you mentioned, a Short Hike, which is a platformer that I really like.
Oh yeah, that looked neat, like the low poly thing.
Yes. Takeshi and Hiroshi, just kind of like a
That claymation thing.
Yeah, it looks really good, and it's like about like making games for your little brother, and so there's a bunch of different stuff in there. I don't know how it plays, really. Excuse me, I don't really know how it plays, but it looks really cool. And then Manifold Garden also dropped, and I feel like I'm probably forgetting one. I think EverQuest, something.
EverQuest.
Yeah, not
They
that.
should just some indie person should make like a super indie game and just call it EverQuest.
Yeah,
See what
with
happens.
a space in there. Yeah. But I mean, the point is like there was a lot of developers waiting. It seemed like for something like this to finally release their game. And do you think that's how it went? Like, some of these developers would have released earlier if they had like an opportunity to do something on an indie world or a direct, or do you think it just happened to line up? It was coincidence.
I don't know. I didn't think about that till you said it just now. I guess that makes some sense. I suppose that there was just like this backlog of people waiting for Nintendo to be like, yeah, we're gonna do one of these things. We finally got the Bakugan thing out of the way, so now you guys can come up and do your thing, I guess.
Yep.
So I don't know. I guess that's what you think. That's why you brought it up, right?
I think there's a chance that a lot of these developers were probably had these games finished for a little bit, and now they're just like, hey, Nintendo, are you going to do anything? Can we? And then Nintendo's probably like, yeah, we're putting stuff together, and then it's like, okay, we're gonna do an indie world, and everyone's like, okay, yeah, that's when we'll drop our game. And so then there's like 5 or 6 developers all releasing a game that day, which I mean, I doubt it hurts any of them. I doubt like there's that much like overlap where it's like, most people are probably like, we're always going to just pick like 1 or 2 of those games, but for me, I was excited about a few of them, so I was like, man, this is a lot of games on one day.
It's the Spiritfarer one's really interesting to me just because like at last E3 that was something Microsoft was pushing. Like I think they showed it at their show. I know I played it on their E3 show floor case thing that they have in the Microsoft Theater these days. So like that was something that they were really promoting. So to see that suddenly be like on the Switch thing, and also like, yeah, this is out now on Switch, and of course it was out for everything else too, but like it suddenly was very tied into Switch.
Yeah, it was. I think a lot of indie developers are realizing, after story comes out, where it's like, oh, this indie game sold significantly better on Switch than anything else. There was a recent release that it was way outpaced expectations on Switch. I can't remember what it was. It was, I think, a Japanese game. But it's like, yeah, even if you have like a good relationship with Microsoft or Sony, it's clear that your indie game, if it's not going to, if it's not going to go on everything, you probably want to try to be on Switch first. I think like a good example of that is that Card Shark game. This is from the developer of Reigns, which was a mobile game where you get cards or whatever, and like you just like swipe left.
Oh
swipe
yeah,
right.
that looks kind of interesting.
Yeah, and Reigns was a good game, and they did like a sequel, and both of those were out on mobile. And you would expect like, okay, that developer's got a lot of things going on mobile. That's where they're going to stay. But no, they're going to switch to Switch because I think they realized, switch to Switch. I think they realize like that mobile market's always going to be there, but if you get out on Switch first, there's a chance to get a lot of buzz, a lot of hype, and a lot of sales. So
and then we had Grindstone coming too, and that's kind of make me think about the Apple Arcade experiment of like how that could maybe be a new thing for indies. Do you think is that already maybe kind of a done dream?
I don't know if it's a done dream. I think they are. I think I heard that they were pivoting already. Like they want more games to have more long-term engagement instead of like the game you pay a price for and then you play it and then you finish it. I think they're finding that doesn't necessarily work with what they want. And I think it's different because on mobile you kind of do just want that one mindless game that you're playing when you have a chance, and it's different than like Game Pass where it's cool to just have a library of games, and a lot of them are just short experiences that you can play through and be done with. I think that it's a strength of that platform, but on mobile it's not working as well. And I don't play enough mobile games really anymore to like really fully understand why that would be the case. But it does seem like it is not nearly as popular as they were hoping it would be, and they are going to make some changes to the way, like to the kinds of games they probably put in there. And so maybe a game like Card Shark is something that would have been in there up front, but it's probably still a better business move to go on Switch than to go on Apple Arcade first. So, yeah, go ahead.
So when's the Nintendo Direct with the Nintendo games and everything now?
So I've heard a few things, and I think there's a strong possibility that there is a Nintendo Direct next week on Friday. That's the date I've heard, and that's one of the reasons.
You don't want to super put this out there like you did that one time, and you almost had a panic attack when it didn't happen.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes, I'm over
you don't want everyone.
Yeah, and also it's like after that last partner showcase where a couple people that I know were like, "This is the next Direct," and it was a Direct partner showcase, and people were making all kinds of predictions for like what could be there, and it was pie in the sky stuff that you would hope would be at a general Direct, and it's like. And then it comes along, and all these people were right. There was a Direct. It just was a partner showcase. And then at the end of that show, they said, and we're going to have more partner showcases coming up soon. So anything I hear in the back of my mind, there's always that like sort of ringing as an echo. And it's like, okay, yeah, I think there's a lot of signs pointing to next week being a general Direct. And there is a general Direct coming up. It seems like for sure. But next week,
there has to be, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, there has to be. But and that's
of course
what
I thought that for months now. So
yeah, true. But I hear that stuff, and it's like, okay, yes, it could be a general Direct. It also could be a partner showcase, and if it is, or if it's just like if it's like something else that we haven't seen before, I would still expect a general direct to come by the middle of September at the latest. It seems like I was hearing that even before Nintendo announced that they're having like a special meeting with investors in the middle of September, and I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to get a direct out of the way before that happens, so that they don't have to answer questions like what games are coming up. They can focus on other stuff when they're talking to their investors, and the investors are fully aware of the upcoming lineup and can feel good about that stuff. And
Right,
in Nintendo just doesn't want to deal with that, so of course I think they would do a direct before then. But yeah, what does that mean? Like in between a week from now and 3 weeks from now, I think is kind of the ballpark range that I'm looking at. 3.5 weeks or so.
Yeah. So we have some indie games that tied us over till then now. So
Yeah, and I think like the story of the indie world showcase is that the Switch is still just like this really great platform for these kinds of games, and when a show like this comes along, it's really you could still be antsy about like, man, what has Nintendo got? But if you kind of just like put that aside for a second, it's like, oh, okay, there are a ton of really awesome things that I want to play on my Switch because they're on Switch. The games that might have already been out, but now that they're on Switch, I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm going to play them either again or for the first time finally. Like Subnautica, when that comes to Switch, I'll probably finally play that. And it's such a strong platform for that stuff. It's like, okay, they're really good at filling in these gaps between Nintendo games in a way that they have never been really before with a Nintendo console. So I'm still doing pretty well, but that doesn't mean like I don't want that direct. I think we're gonna have to hear about those Nintendo games eventually. At this point, like a lot of people are just like, that's not real. And I'm like, yeah, let's.
Yeah, it's hard to believe now. Like
yeah.
I know, like I think you talked about this last week, but I almost am like, are these Mario 3D remakes? Is that even real? I don't even know anymore.
Yeah,
But
and I'm like, okay, let's just get that out of the way. And I think Nintendo's ready to start talking about that stuff. So, so yeah, hopefully it happens soon. All right, that was the Nintendo Indie World Showcase. Other news happened over the last week. This story is kind of, I'm not sure how much you care about this, Mike. I know you do have some VR headsets now, but like, I don't think you have an Oculus. But
not an Oculus.
Facebook acquired Oculus in like 2014 now. Can't believe like that was a long time ago now, and time flies. Jeez. It was, even if it was like 2016, I can't remember if it's exactly right, but one of those dates. And either way, it's a long time. But going forward now, Facebook is sort of dropping its Oculus sort of login system. It's no longer planning to run Oculus as like this separate interface where you can get all your VR content. You're going to be logging in with a Facebook account, and that's going to start applying immediately in October. If you are a new user to an Oculus VR headset, if you get an Oculus, if you get like one of the standard Oculus Quest or whatever for the first time this holiday, you're gonna have to have a Facebook account. If you already have an Oculus account and that's how you've been signing into your existing VR headsets, that'll continue until 2023, and then they are going to kind of pull the plug on that. And I think sometime between now and 2023, you're gonna have to merge your Oculus account with your Facebook account. So it's not like you can continue, avoiding using Facebook if that's kind of the kind of person you are, which is, I'm definitely trending that way. I don't use Facebook at all. I still have the account to log into stuff. But like I always feel like I'm like one step away from just deleting my Facebook account finally. So, this is a bummer. I get why they're doing it, but it seems like a bad move just because they are different audiences, the Facebook audience and the Oculus audience, and it seems kind of a shame to force people to use one for the other.
Yeah, it seems weird. But I mean, I guess like, I don't know, one thought I have is like, you are using a Facebook product, right?
Yes.
So, if you got to use their, I mean, I understand, not liking Facebook and not wanting to use that login, but it's like, that's what you have is a Facebook device technically now. So yeah, it's weird. I don't understand why they super feel the need to do it. I guess maybe it makes things easier on some of their back end stuff, and probably for like sharing accounts and whatnot. But
yeah, it's kind of how. I mean, if this is something that really upsets you as someone who's big into VR, I totally get that, and I sympathize. At the same time, it's like I think we always knew that this was kind of happening. It's not like Facebook wasn't getting your data before. They definitely were, and And yeah, I mean, there's other headsets out there. If you wanna avoid this, I understand the Oculus Quest is the best standalone experience. I bet there's going to be competitors eventually to that.
Yeah, that's the one because I was going to make that point too. Like, just use a different headset. And I was thinking, well, there's not really a good
Yeah,
alternative right now to the Quest, but there's going to be at some point.
I would think so. Yeah, the Quest has been pretty successful relative to that entire market. So
Mm.
I would expect going forward, like that is going to be the future. And if there's going to be competitors, it's going to be in that space. So, but you know, and if you're on PC, if you're doing PC VR, I mean, the Vive is great. Go ahead, just sell your Oculus and get into the Vive Index or the Valve Index instead.
Sure.
All right, yeah. Moving on to Rocksteady, which has had kind of a tumultuous week of news. Rocksteady, the developers of Batman, most of the Batman games, WB Montreal,
The ones everyone liked.
the ones everyone likes, however,
The Arkhams.
yeah, the Arkham games, and they, in the Guardian, the newspaper in England, there was a story posted that in 2018, 10 of the 16 female employees at Rocksteady signed a letter saying, "Hey, we this is a pretty toxic environment. There's sexual harassment. There are often inappropriate comments made. Sometimes those comments are bigoted towards." Or they border on racism or trans misogyny and anti-trans language, and we don't like it, and we wish Rocksteady leadership would do something about it. The Guardian story says that since that has come out, that Rocksteady hasn't really done anything about it. The claim is that Rocksteady had a sensitivity meeting, basically, where people went through training for a little bit over one day, and they signed a letter saying they understood, you know, what's expected of them, and then nothing has happened since. And Rocksteady was dealing with this. They hadn't really said much, and then I think the day before yesterday, on like Wednesday, Rocksteady's like, in the process of establishing our response to the news, we got this unsolicited letter from some of our female employees, and it said, and these women said that some of us were here at that time, and some of us signed it, but we signed it with the understanding that the letter would be kept private, and we're not happy that it was made public to the Guardian. And we do think that like Rocksteady did deal with some of it, and it's like Rocksteady posted that on their social media page, and I guess, I mean, let's start, Mike. Kind of, what was your whole reaction to all of this?
I mean, I hate to say, like, until like they shared that second letter, so much of this has almost been par for the course now. It's like, oh, here's another one of these. Yep, sounds about right. I believe that, sure. And then,
Yeah.
Then this other thing happened. I was like, that's a little strange. Just because, again, it's you kind of talked about this last week with, like, what Epic Games is doing. It seems to underestimate how cynical we can be about these things.
Yeah.
Like, my very first thought is like, oh yeah, like this was just something that completely, totally, happily happened by accident, right when you were about to do your apology or something. So, I mean, I don't know. I mean, sure, I can understand them being upset that a private letter was made public, but it's also kind of weird to then like publish that almost as if it's like some gotcha. Like, see, actually, it's not that bad here. Maybe I don't know. It was a bizarre move to me.
I agree. It didn't seem to refute necessarily the story exactly. It just seemed to be like, yeah, you're right, like a gotcha, or like a get out of jail free card sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, yeah, I get that, but the fact that you're so willing to like blast this out, to me, speaks to the cynicism that you're talking about, where it's like, I feel like I could see a reality where the women working at Rocksteady now are now scared of retaliation, or scared of just losing their jobs for any number of reasons, but really because they were one of the signees on this, and people are going to think, well, did you leak this? And maybe we need to get you out of here if you're not going to be a team player. So if I'm one of those women, why wouldn't I just say, okay, how do I how do I move past this so I don't like get in trouble here in my work and can continue getting paid? Well, I could just sign this letter and say, oh, I'm really not happy that this was made public. I just wanted to keep this private. This wasn't supposed to be out there. And it's like that. I'm not going to assume that necessarily that was the case. I can jump to that conclusion in my mind, and then of course I want to back up and be like, okay, if this is what you're saying, I believe you. But still, I don't think it necessarily absolves Rocksteady, and just Rocksteady. We don't know a lot about what their environment's like. I really don't
Yeah,
know.
I never really heard too much about
Yeah,
them like that in those terms really before. Like, they're not a place where I could like tell you the names of Rocksteady employees off the top of my head
same.
or something like that, right?
Yeah, and it's like it's hard to kind of form any sort of opinion about all this stuff. But based on their games, I've always felt like there's this does seem kind of like a almost edgelord sort of studio.
Yeah.
Yeah, their Batman character was always like a bit too try hard, and their women characters in games were very sexualized. That Catman model was always, or
Oh, that Catman, yeah.
Catwoman
Yeah, that
model
was
was
a
always
lot.
like, yeah, it's like, okay, geez, man, it's like it's not the
Yeah,
'90s
I
anymore.
guess I'm like almost so numb to that just being typical
Sure,
too. That, but then again, a lot of like the toxic workplace stuff is typical too. So
right.
I don't know.
Yeah, and it's so yeah, I agree with all that though. It's but it's like it's not hard for me to imagine like, oh yeah, I bet that place could be pretty intense if you are if you don't necessarily fit in with the exact culture that they've built there. But that's an assumption, and all we have to go on is the Guardian's reporting, and now the things that Rocksteady is saying in response to it. But
Right.
you're right, it is par for the course. It is kind of what we expect, and I think that overall that makes me think like it's much easier for me to believe like yeah, it probably is exactly what the Guardian described, because it seems like most places are.
I'm not gonna let it get in the way of me enjoying that Suicide Squad game though.
Yeah, I know.
So.
You're not gonna let anything in the world stop you from enjoying your Suicide Squad game.
My Suicide Squad, mine.
Uh,
Uh,
yeah. I don't know. I'm sure they will might say more about that. Rocksteady's going to be at that DC Fandom event. They're going to be talking about the Suicide Squad game there. We'll see if they probably won't mention any of this at that. That seems to be the kind of thing that doesn't get mentioned when you have a big event coming up. They probably will have a tweet before it though, I bet, or something like that.
and now I'm really curious to see how that game handles Harley Quinn.
Yes,
That,
true.
that is so. I don't know. I
Yep.
already don't entirely get Harley Quinn, and I feel like it could be handled so poorly in the wrong hands. So people can just see it
Yep.
as like people like this character because she's sexy and she likes to talk about sex. So we'll do more of that.
Yep. And yeah, we'll find out soon. All right. So some other interesting news stories. Ghost of Tsushima is getting a 4-player class-based cooperative mode, and I just had this came out of nowhere for me. I would never would have expected this.
It's almost like if they were going to do this, you think that'd be like, this is what you're going to get with the PlayStation 5 version. And yeah, it'll come to PlayStation 4. But even this post, like, said nothing about PlayStation 5 still. So it's just like,
Right.
yeah, it's just no, like, yeah, Ghost of Tsushima is going to get a 4-player co-op mode. And it's like pretty separate sounding from like the main story. Like, you don't play as like Jin. It's like these different characters. It's not even like the same setting. It's more of like a mythological kind of thing. Yeah, there's like these 4 classes like Ronin and something else, and there's like kind of 2-player like story based co-op missions, and then there's basically like wave based things. I mean, I like the basic idea because I liked the combat in Ghost of Tsushima a lot. So yeah, sure, like another mode that's almost more focused around that could be fun with friends, I suppose. But yeah, it is kind of weird just how out of nowhere it was, right?
Yeah, it's you kind of get the sense like this is the kind of thing that you would want to be promoting from launch, like wait long before launch, and saying this is a huge part of our game. But I guess we're in a different world where these games can have really long tails, and it's not like there's going to be a huge number of releases going forward over the next 6 months or so. So these games can have a chance to have a long tail.
It always seems like the kind of thing they used to do, be like, don't trade your game in because this is coming down. But like, people don't really trade their games in that much anymore. I mean, people don't even have physical copies of games as much as they used to. So I don't know. It's weird. But, welcome. I mean, we'll try.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea. I think I'm definitely going to give it a try if I get some time. Although those cooperative games are the kind of thing I usually want to play on PC, but whatever, I'll give it a shot.
Yeah, no, online gaming in general. I want
yeah,
to play PC on my PlayStation.
Yep. This thing got me really excited. A Hitman 3 trailer came out yesterday, and really the news yesterday, I guess, about Hitman 3 was it's on PC. It's going to be exclusive to the Epic Game Store, and I'm just like, yeah, of course it is. I don't care about that anymore.
Whatever.
Yeah. And it's but the trailer showed a new level where Agent 47 is going to get to explore, and it's basically an Agatha Christie locked room murder mystery manor. It's this big mansion in England, and someone has died, and Agent 47 didn't kill them, and it's supposedly looks like a suicide, and the door was locked from the inside, but it's murder. So they bring in this detective to come find out like what happened here, and of course the detective is Agent 47, and this just looks like a riot. It looks like so much fun.
Does Agent 47 have a target in this then?
I'm sure. I mean, so like the way these games have worked, I'm sure there's going to be like multiple targets. But I wonder how like the mystery aspect is going to work. I think are you going to be able to I don't know. I think there's a bunch of ways they could do that. Like maybe you can decide who like actually did it, based on the evidence. And then that's who you get to kill, and maybe it could change every time. It could be like a Clue situation, Clue movie situation, where every time you play it could change. Yeah, it's like I know it's like there's a lot of potential here, but even just like the environment they have, like okay, a big spooky English manor that's gonna have secret passages and like pulling on the headstone to open up doors in the library or whatever.
Oh yeah,
and just like all the things that he could say as a detective, because like some of the best stuff in the last couple of games has been like just Agent 47's really dry delivery whenever he's in like a weird situation where a normal human would just be whatever, and he's just like he does his drone and it's like everything he says is hilarious. I'm looking forward to that as well. But yeah, I think this is just a super smart idea, and it's like it fits so well with like what Hitman does well. Like it just gives you these playgrounds, and they're really intricate, and you just find ways to throw Agent 47 into that intricacy to blow up like the clockwork movements and see what changes and see how you can cause domino effects from there. And it's sort of like the Groundhog Day scheme where it's like you start it over and over and over, and you learn how everything works, and then eventually you are just moving through this environment like this ghost, and doing that in a murder mystery setting to me is just very exciting. Prince of Persia is getting a remake, and if I say that, Mike, like, what are your thoughts? Like, what game do you think they're going to do?
I mean, you would assume it would be Sands of Time, right? Like,
right, and it
like, what else would
It's not. They're doing the It looks like the Warrior Within. What's the one where he's got like the shadow guy that he turns into or whatever? Like he's half shadow. Yeah, there were other good Prince of Persia games, but you don't remake those before Sands of Time. I don't think the one that was just called Prince of Persia was good, right?
No, not really. It was very boring. It was it had like no like fail state. I think I played through it. It was like the old ones, but because those are ones that came out after the trilogy. I just remember it's boring because the whole thing was based around platforming almost exclusively, and if you fell off, you just like respawn exactly where you were, and just try again infinitely. It also was like, oh, no one knows the voice again or something. I think it was, anyways. I don't know. I think some people liked it fine. I don't think it was. It certainly isn't a game you remake. I mean, there was no sequels to it. I don't think anybody liked it that much. I don't think Ubisoft was that happy with it, because right after that, they did like that kind of weird fourth Prince of Persia game in the other series. They like unbooted the reboots. But I didn't know too much about this. I don't believe you. There's no way they would remake Warrior Within before Sands of Time. Sands of Time is the one everyone likes.
So it's listed as just Prince of Persia remake, and the picture is I'm gonna have to just send you the picture. I'm gonna maybe send it to you on Discord.
Maybe it's like a bad temp picture they're using, but if it's that Duhaka or whatever it was, I have a friend who likes Warrior Within more than maybe anybody, and I hate him for it. So I yell at him a lot. He's like the guy who thought it was like really cool that heavy metal band was involved in a Prince of Persia game, and I'm like, no, that's stupid. He thought it was really cool that like people were saying the word bitch a lot more, and stuff like that. And I'm like, no, that makes it stupid.
You know, I'm going to add it into here. If I copy image address, and then if I add it as a browser source.
Oh man!
Hang on. Let me.
Well, you just added. Yeah, I mean that's totally what that is. But are you sure that's not just like weird? Ugh. I mean that could also be the third one. But like, why would you do? Okay, first off, it's a trilogy. And there are 3 games, and the one that people like by far the most is the first one. Maybe it's now. Maybe what's more likely is that it's all 3 games, right? Like we've seen that all the time. maybe they're just doing what they did with Crash Bandicoot and Spyro.
I thought there were
That
more
would
than three
make sense.
games too. Was there just three? It was Warrior Within, Sands of Time, and then Prince of Persia.
No, man, you don't know anything about Prince of Persia. You're an idiot.
No, no, okay. Then there's more than three then.
Well, I mean, in this, yeah, they made a lot of Prince of Persia games, but I mean, in that there's a trilogy that were all came out on the same platform. There was Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and then Two Thrones or something like that. And that was a trilogy. Then on 360, they rebooted it with that game just called Prince of Persia. And then after that, and it was like around the time that movie came out, they made Prince of Persia: Forgotten Sands, which I think people liked. Okay, but like it's still pretty separate from that trilogy. But there is a Prince of Persia trilogy that is pretty well defined. That if they wanted to do exactly what had been done with Crash, like there've been other Crash Bandicoot games, right? But like we all knew what three games they were going to remake. That's exactly how I feel about this. It would be those three games. Very. All right,
if you're such an expert, then look at this picture. It's it's kind of blurry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know, but I mean that looks like one of those first places from Sands of Time to me. I mean, it's hard to tell. That looks like that's one of those first big. I remember very early on, you're in like a cathedral or palace kind of thing, and you're in the rafters.
I feel like that's all of them now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
right, so.
I hope you're right. I hope it's all three of them, or if it's not, I hope it's Sands of Time. I
would take $100 bet that they aren't only remaking Warrior Within. There's no way.
But even if it's not Warrior Within, like it's hard to tell. Like maybe you're right. Maybe that is someone just using like pulling the wrong image, and they're just like that's the image they got when they did a Google image search. Prince of Persia remake. It could just be a remake of that like 2008 Prince of Persia.
Yeah. No, there's no way it's that. There's no way. It could be like a remake of like the original Prince of Persia, whatever that means, like the old like stereoscope 2D side-scroller game. No, I think there's only two realistic things here. It's either a remake of Sands of Time or it's a remake of that trilogy that I was talking about. There is no way it's a remake of that 2008 game. Absolutely no.
All right. No, I'm glad. No, I find this a relief. I'm glad to hear that.
There's absolutely no way. Plus that game had a completely different art style and character. It wasn't in the same continuity. And even if they did pull up the wrong art, it didn't look anything like that Prince.
Right.
Like that was the one you're showing was absolutely either from
right. I think
Two Thrones or Warrior Within.
Yeah.
Because Two Thrones, he still has that. It's the same exact thing they did with the Jack and Daxter games, where all like starting the second one, it became darker, and there was like Dark Jack sometimes. Sometimes he would become a darker, very.
Very 2000s, yeah. All right, well, no, this is a relief to me. I'm glad.
Did you like how mad I got at the?
Yes, I do like it. Yeah, because
the idea. I have a lot of baggage Warrior Within, like I said, because I've been yelling at my friend about this for years. The idea that they would remake only that. No, there's no way. I would sell my house.
I only played Sands of Time, and maybe I played a few like for a little bit, but Sands of Time I played a ton, like over and over. I love that game.
Right.
So
everyone likes. So I think there's a lot of people like you who only played Sands of Time because that was really the only one that was exceptional.
Right.
I'm sure the other ones are like good in their own ways, or like if you can get past like the dark edginess that they added for no reason, it's actually still very good. But Sands of Time is one everyone likes.
Okay. Well, let's hope. Let's see. Just a couple more stories. EA Play is coming to Steam on August 31st, and EA Play is the new name for EA Access or Origin Access is what it was called before. It's EA subscription service, so now you will be able to subscribe to it through Steam. I think this is part of EA's strategy to kind of get its subscription stuff in more places. I think they're going to do more with it soon. I think we'll hear about it pretty soon, probably by the end of this month. If not, it'll be early September. But yeah,
they want it with Squadrons.
Yeah. When does Squadrons come out? I forgot about that game until someone mentioned it like earlier today.
I think September. That sounds right. Right. It's before the consoles. Right. It's like September, October.
I'm ready for that game now. Yeah.
But now you're in your flying mode, right? You're thinking you have you have your joystick out. You're like, ooh, I can use this.
Yeah, exactly. And we'll talk about that soon. Last thing, Fall Guys is leveraging its popularity to raise money for charity. So since Fall Guys came out, it became like a big. It was trending on Twitter and on social media.
Yeah, and it's a big trending game. Yes. Even though you refuse to play it with me anymore after that one time we had so much fun.
If you're still playing it, I'll try to play with you again. I'm a busy man.
Why do I always have to initiate, Jeff?
I feel bad because I'm like I get done. I put my kid to bed and then it's like midnight for you. I'm like, I don't want to like bother him and make him feel like he has to get out of bed if he's in bed. I don't know. I'm a guilt-ridden person, Mike Minotti.
Yes, you are. Yes, you are. And I like encouraging it.
Yeah. All right. Well, now that I feel bad, they are going to raise money for charity by all these brands wanting to get their stuff into the game because, of course, they do. Like,
yes.
It's a good way to like raise brand awareness. But there is no like they've already started doing that or anything like that. And since the game came out, like KFC and all these other ones were like, please put us in there. And the developers are like, okay, so here's what we're gonna do. Whichever company makes the biggest donation to this particular charity that helps disabled gamers in the UK, we will put your stuff in the game. So it's just like forcing them all to make big donations, and I think they all have to like go through with it. So it's like it should do a lot for that charity, and it's just a smart move from a game that has
smart move.
Yeah, go ahead.
It kind of like removes. Like, normally I would be so cynical about seeing KFC stuff in the game. Like even just seeing it would like lessen my enjoyment. But now that I know that they kind of got tricked into like, making donations to charity, I'm like, yeah, man, wear that KFC hat.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, give me that drumstick skin. All right.
And it's like it's more signs of like how well this game has handled its success. I think the server issues were like its biggest problems, but everything else it has just done so well with it. Like
you see how much it was trending just when that streamer Tim
the Tatman.
Yeah, like I mean he like won his first game. I guess like he was having a hard time winning, and like when he won, like everyone blew up about it. Like
it was on ESPN.
I was like, whoa, okay, Fall Guys is actually here. Like it's not just like it certainly isn't like a 2-week fad. It's going to be a matter of months or at least a year, maybe more. So good for them. And it's got to be. Is this Digital Devolver's biggest hit yet? It has
yeah. Devolver Digital said it's already.
Did I call him Digital Devolver?
You did, and it's bad that you did that because it's wrong. But they confirmed that it's by far their biggest launch ever, and of course it is. It's massive. It's a huge hit, and it's like. Even without like the PS4 sort of PSN where people could download it for free if you have the subscription, it sold like 2 million copies on Steam. So yeah,
isn't that fun? I wonder if they're like kind of wishing they didn't do that. Now.
Yeah, it's like hindsight's 2020, right? Like you kind of want that stuff to encourage more people to play, but also it seems like it would have done well on its own no matter what.
That's the bet. You're kind of guarding yourself when you take one of those things, right? Like, oh, now we have a guarantee. It doesn't necessarily matter how many people download it, and flip side is if your game's a giant breakout hit, but usually your games aren't giant breakout hits, so it's usually a safe bet to take. So.
Yeah, it was a smart move, and it's like it's not like they weren't prepared. Like they have microtransactions, they have seasons coming up. They're going to be announcing season 2 at Gamescom live with Jeff Keighley. Like and
everyone's
ready to go.
Interested in that. Like I want to know, oh, what's in season 2?
Yeah,
like,
exactly. Same here. Yes, and I'll probably pick up some stuff because I like their cosmetics. But yeah, like the point here is like they're really good at what they're doing here with the social media. They are they fan the flames in the right ways to like keep people talking about it. They were definitely like juicing up that Tim the Tatman sort of like, oh, he's never going to win. He's the worst player, and they were building up that beef, and it helped turn it into the big thing that it was. And then to do this with the charity, it's like, okay, they know what they're doing, and it's kind of what this game needs if like you want to keep people feeling good about it going forward and willing to like spend money. Is don't overdo it. Don't like open the floodgates to every brand, but if you like crack it open and let one in and kind of do it through charity to start, I'm going to be more open to other brands coming in later, and I'm not going to think about like the charity aspect. If it's stuff, it's like they actually are paying you. I'm like, okay, yeah, there's already KFC in here, so who cares?
So when are they going to let Epic put in free Fortnite hat skins?
Yeah, I'm sure that's any moment now. Yeah, I mean that did have some developments over this past week, but it's like I don't know.
Yeah.
Have your thoughts evolved on this at all?
I don't know. I know. I think the general opinion is that Apple's like retaliation went pretty far because according to Epic anyway, it's this could potentially like impact anybody who uses Unreal Engine for Mac and iOS game development. Which like I was almost having a hard time believing that. But
I'm like I don't know how that works necessarily. I agree.
But Apple Epic put that out there, like they claimed that's what Apple was doing, and Apple never refuted it. So
and the developers that use Unreal Engine never said anything. So I'm like, And I was kind of like waiting for other people like that would know more about that stuff to sort of step in and fact check if it wasn't exactly true. I'm sure that there are. It would be more difficult without having. I guess for people that don't know, Apple, part of its retaliation against Epic for trying to use an alternative payment method in the App Store, cut off all of Epic's sort of use of iOS and Mac tools. And that means, Epic makes the Unreal Engine, and that means that Unreal can no longer tie directly into that stuff. But it still to Mike's point, I always thought like you would still be able to download Unreal as a developer, build your game using that, still export it out as a game that would run on iOS, and then put it in, and then maybe some of that stuff doesn't work. Maybe some of the tie-in, like the multiplayer features don't work exactly right because they're not keeping up with iOS. But I still thought the engine still should function, right? But who knows? We're not experts on this stuff.
I don't know.
So, but the point here, regardless, I think overall is like Apple is not afraid of looking like a monopoly. They don't care.
No.
They don't care that you think they're a monopoly, and they're going to use their market power, their outsized market power, to crush people that try to deviate.
My kind of big takeaway is just like, man, these two companies like actually hate each other's guts, and like like I know there's like a lot on the line for people, so I don't want to like seem like nonchalant about it, but like in a way, it's refreshing to like see these two like mega corporations hate each other.
Yeah,
especially because like these days we have like every brand's like Twitter intern, like high-fiving each other.
Yeah.
On Twitter, like we're all friends actually. Haha, put my logo on your logo,
Yeah, I mean, it's way
like,
better.
We're taking you to court and we're going to kill your dog.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Free Fortnite, hashtag.
It's way better that Nintendo and Microsoft do get along, but yeah, part of me is like, let them fight. I want to see the fight.
Let them fight.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
I mean, and it's like, it was, I guess, at a certain point, you always expect this to happen with Epic and Tim Sweeney because they always seem to get in a fight. Like, you remember Dennis Dyack suing Epic? And it was like that. That was also a battle. And I mean, I think Tim Sweeney might have actually killed Dennis Dyack because I haven't heard anything from him since.
I haven't heard. No, he was good. No, they're gonna get that Eternal Darkness spiritual successor funded for sure next time.
Yeah, exactly. And that failed how many times, man? Oof. Yeah, exactly. So, but it always seems like he ends up in one of these, and sometimes because of his own making. But yeah, I mean, bottom line here, Fortnite is still not on either iOS or Android, at least their stores, not on Google Play, and not on.
You can play it pretty easily on Android devices still, but Apple is becoming another thing.
Right, and then the lawsuits going forward, it sounds like the judge that is on the case heard a similar case involving Apple and ruled in favor of Apple back in 2013. And it's like, wow, big surprise that a government-appointed lawyer is going to be like, hey, I'm in favor of the giant corporation that controls everything. Like, it's kind of the kind of judges that we've been appointing for a long time, which is one of the reasons why people haven't done these lawsuits before.
Right. I mean, this is going to be a thing that's going to play out over years. I know that. I mean, that is one of the big things, right? Like, you wonder how much Epic expects to quote unquote win anything here, and how much Tim Sweeney cares, and he's like, I have Fortnite money now. I'm going to go at Apple because
and it's because when they're the other side of this stuff, like that cartoon we talked about last week, the propaganda and like the free Fortnite like hat that they're like giving out now to people that compete in their upcoming tournament. That stuff will have no effect on the lawsuit or the judge or anything like that. And so it's like, who are they trying to win over there? It seems like the court of public opinion, and then maybe that sways some politicians. Maybe they're thinking that like when this thing doesn't necessarily go through, they will have to turn to other avenues to change things. But I also just I don't know how willing they are going to be to go through with a lawsuit because I don't think either company is going to want to go through discovery. Like if Apple asks for all of the emails related to Tim Sweeney's discussion of the App Store, I bet there's going to be some stuff in there that Epic and Tim don't want out in the public, the way that he talks about that stuff. I bet it's going to look way worse than Epic's the good guy fighting for all developers. It's probably not going to be the conversations he's having behind closed doors. So when it gets to that point of like, okay, do we go through the next step and actually submit to discovery, or do we try to make a deal with Apple? I think they would want to make a deal with Apple, but I I don't necessarily know how much that helps him here, because like we talked about last week, a big reason that they're doing this on mobile is they're worried about developers using Unreal Engine on mobile, and the reason they can't is because Epic wants to take a 5% royalty from Unreal games, and that digs in steeply to the revenues that developers can make when they're already paying 30% to Apple and Google, and so he kind of the win state here for Epic kind of is lower the take for Apple and Google across the board, so that all these developers can now turn to Epic and start using Unreal Engine. So, I mean, I'm sure they've plotted this out with their lawyers. I'm sure part of it is like Epic's just saying, "Go for it. We're willing to actually do this and see how it plays out." But I'm having a harder and harder time of seeing like this really changing anything, because I think once it gets to a certain point, both of them are going to just be like, "Okay, well, we'll make a small deal with each other and call it a day." All right, so that does it for the news. But we have some games that we've been playing, and a couple of them I'm pretty excited about. I think we've both been playing the same stuff. Which one do you want to start with? Do you have a preference?
Let's talk about Flight Simulator.
Let's talk about Flight Simulator. So I was surprised when you messaged me and were like, Flight Simulator is really good. I was never even going to like recommend it to you. I'm like, this is a certain kind of game. I don't know if Mike would dig this, and I don't think he needs to, but you like it.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly is not usually my thing, these kind of hardcore sims, let alone flight sims. And, I don't know what it is. Part of me is like, especially when I get older, just have fun learning about things I don't know much about. And I don't know very much about airplanes or how they work, or, what a rudder actually does or stuff like that. So, like in this base level, it was kind of fun, like, doing the tutorials and like learning, oh, that's what that does. And, oh, yeah, I can actually understand, see exactly how that works. And then like the other part of it is just like the technical like ridiculousness of it, right? How good it looks, how impressive it is when you're in the sky looking down things. Once I did the tutorials, like I immediately like started flying around Disney World, and it's like,
of course,
man, wow, this is cool. And obviously, it's like as you get closer, like some of the stuff looks a bit more like a 3D Google Map thing.
Sure,
but especially from the air, and especially in screenshots, like man, it looks incredible, and like it's all there. Like I am flying around real time, and where things are supposed to be, they are there. Like I was even flying towards the Magic Kingdom, and as I did that, I flew over where they used to have like their airstrip. Like they actually had a runway right next to the Magic Kingdom for a while, and I forgot about it until I was right over. I was like, oh man. Like sadly, they like park cars there now, so I can't land on it. But I'm like, that's great. Like there it is. Like I've heard about that, and now I see it. Then like the other thing was like I know people say like, oh, you should like change your call sign in the menu before you go, because that's fun. So I put in Rocketeer, and then I made my tail number 59. And like the comms, like the person, like the flight attendant was just literally like, yeah, Rocketeer 59, or you're clear to go. I'm like, how the hell did they do that? I can do that now.
I know the machine learning language. I think that's you always think of the machine, the AI speech as being very robotic still, and I think a large part of that is the physicist, I can't remember his name. The guy, he was a quadriplegic in a wheelchair. He couldn't speak, so he talked in a robot voice. Stephen Hawking, thank you. And he knew that there was actually updated models that could sound way more natural, but he's like, no, this is my voice. Actually, people recognize this robot voice, so it's my brand. Basically, I'm going to stick with it. And so I think a lot of us still think that's what robot voices sound like, and it's like, oh no, they got way more lifelike in the last couple of years, and it is surprising. I actually didn't even realize that it would do that until you mentioned it, and I'm like, I went right in there and changed it. And I'm like, okay, this is very cool. So I
know. I'm like, because I'm still used to like when playing like MLB The Show or like a WWE game, it's like put in your nickname for your creator wrestler. Right. It's like here are the options, and I'm like, Mike. Like list. They don't have Minotti. I am Mike McMaster, and it's like here comes Mike McMaster. It's like pre-recorded things jumbled together.
Yep.
So I was like, oh, okay, we can do this now. That's neat. But even like last night, I was watching a video about all the airplanes, learning a little bit more about each one that's in the game, and I'm like, this is just like a neat thing to kind of learn about and delve into something new. And I took off from Pittsburgh International Airport the other day. I'm like, this is the airport I fly out of, and yeah, there it is. I was like flying an actual jet for the first time, like a big, like, like passenger commercial jet. And I was like, whoa, this thing is really big. And just like admiring the cockpits. What was funny was like when I first started it, I was only using a keyboard because I'm like, that's where the most buttons are. I very quickly realized like, man, you definitely need some kind of like analog device for like pitch and stuff like that. You can't just be pushing buttons. Like that does not really work. But then like, even with just like using an Xbox One controller, and having my keyboard there for like things like I push this button to bring up the nav map, or I push this button to bring up, those the timer things, or other like menus or whatnot, or some of the camera controls. You can do everything pretty well just with that setup, and it feels really good still.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the successes here is that they really have made it work across every device that you probably might plug in. I have been using the HOTAS though, the hands-on throttle and stick. It's a basic one from Thrustmaster. I think it was like $80, $90 when it came out. It was made for like Air Combat or Ace Combat on consoles. That's the brand on the PlayStation version that I have that I'm actually going to send to you. But I was using the other one. It's the same exact setup, and it's just a stick and a throttle, and it's got plenty of buttons, and the buttons automatically mapped once I installed the drivers, and they worked really well. And I could like set the trim using like a sort of a toggle, not a toggle, but like a tilter controller on my left hand, and like it just feels really nice. I
didn't even know trim was a thing until I played this game. Like, ooh,
me
trim.
neither, actually.
Like, oh, trim's very important.
Yes, it is. I'm like, oh man, this is nice. I'm like, I was doing a flight over South America at sunset, and I'm like, I specifically picked that. I'm like, I have it set to the real world clock and the real world weather conditions. And I'm like, okay, where's the sun setting right now in the real world? It's like, okay, it's going across Brazil. So I'm going to fly off in this really small airstrip in the middle of Brazil, and I'm going to fly to like Sao Paulo or something. And as I'm like taking off, I'm like, I look behind me, the sunset's really great, but like you quickly start flying away from that sun, and it's getting darker and darker and darker. And it's cool to see as you get higher and higher, like the stars show up while it's still basically daylight, and then as it goes like purple and then to black, and the stars in the game are really cool. If you fly at night, like seeing the Milky Way, it's like, man, this is actually it's photorealistic. But at that point, like you can't see anything, and so I like did most of that flight until I got to the city, where like the city's lit up and gorgeous, and it's like unbelievable how realistic that looks. But up until that point, like I'm just honestly staring at my instruments and learning to fly by my instruments and not even looking at the world anymore. And it's like, man, this just kind of like figuring out how these planes work actually is very cool.
Right. No, like, yeah, I was surprised. Like at first, when that first thing came up, where it's like, push start on this clock here, and you can navigate that way. I'm like, that's stupid. And then I'm like, actually, that's kind of interesting, and that is kind of neat, because, like, yeah, like obviously sometimes you don't have landmarks, and how else are you going to get to places? I'm like, oh, yeah. I'm surprised how much I like it and how much I want to, play more of it, despite the incredible toll it takes on my computer and the incredible loading times and everything. I'm like, I'll put up with it, because this actually feels pretty special. This is really
what settings are you using on your computer? Like, was it just ultra? High, okay.
No, high.
High's right. Yeah, high's even with like I have pretty decent hardware, and even I was like, I'm just gonna go to high so I can get at least 60 frames per second. And even then it drops below that. But yeah, that thing is really intense on CPUs. It turns out, just because of course it's a simulation. It really is simulating all these physical movements through the air, and to do that requires a lot of CPU. So
yeah, I'm like, it's a game where I'm gonna close my browser before I open this, just to give my computer any little bit of juice I can.
Yeah, but it's I was really happy with it. I was kind of still surprised to see how well it reviewed, and I think people reviewing it know they are reviewing it for that audience. But I do think there's a potential here, especially with it being on Game Pass, to bring in a lot of people into simulators in a way that it never has before. It is it could use some more tutorialization, like when you do.
I think so.
I was trying to fly the Airbus jetline, jumbo jetliner on medium, and it's like the difficulty settings don't like dumb down any of the physics. Like everything flies like it's supposed to still, but it automates more of the plane's functions. The lower you go. But even on medium, I'm like, there are a lot of buttons here, and this dashboard keeps yelling at me with like this alarm.
Yeah, like,
and I don't know how to
speed
turn
high
it
or
off.
like something. I'm like, I don't know. Yeah, like when I was flying the jump jet, I'm almost like, I don't know if I'm ready for this really, because I'm just trying to I'm not even entirely sure how high I'm supposed to be going. I'm sure it's supposed to be going higher, and somehow I'm going too fast. At one point, I turned on active pause, and I was like messing around with a bunch of things, and I forgot active pause was on, and I was like trying to steer left and right, and I couldn't. And I was getting really mad. Like I spent 10 minutes trying to figure out what was wrong, like looking at my dashboard. Then I realized what I did. So, and as soon as I turned active pause back on, because I had messed around with the trimming so much, my airplane just immediately like spiraled into the ground. I was like, oh no.
Man, I haven't even messed with that yet, but I'll have to give that a shot. It's there's so much there, but it is. I think it's still going to be intimidating to a lot of people. But if you just kind of stick with the planes they give you, most people should feel very, very comfortable. I think you're right. Like I'm like, wait, am I at the right altitude? Am I cruising at the right speed?
Yeah.
When I put the flight into like the overworld map, and it's like, oh, this should take you like an hour and 15 minutes, and I'm like flying, and I've been flying for 20 minutes, and the ETA is still like 2 hours. I'm like, oh, I'm not going fast enough. Like, well, should I just go higher and then go faster? So I did like last night. I turned on the AI pilot. And which is an option, and I thought it would like just continue flying me toward my goal, but it didn't. It turned me around, and I'm like, okay, but at least it was also like going to the right altitude and flying at the right speed, and I'm like, okay, I see now. So I was too high and I was going too slow. So like, okay, I'm gonna match what the AI is doing now, and then I'm gonna turn it off and get back on. I'm almost to my path.
Yeah, I'm always kind of excited for people to make more like video tutorials and content for getting it to the nitty gritty of some of this stuff is kind of what I'm excited for. Like, like to the extent that I see with like, class guides for like World of Warcraft or something, like I want really like good videos. Like here's a 20-minute video on how to properly use your flaps and stuff like that. Like that's what I want. That's literally what would get me excited.
And it has a marketplace, and I think the marketplace is from like community content, and I think a lot of that stuff could end up getting put in there. Maybe not always. You might not always have to pay for it either, but even if it's like installing mods separately outside of the marketplace, putting more tutorials built into the game, watching videos. But then I also do want to just kind of see what the community is going to do. I would like to see how the multiplayer is going to expand, and like even if I could just like sit in the plane while someone else is flying it, I think that would be fun, and like just talk to them about like while they're flying, and like almost make it like just a virtual chat room. Like, I don't know, something about that like is appealing to me. But
you saw there's like like all these people were playing online just circling Epstein's Island in the Caribbean or whatever that was. Just like, it's funny.
Of course. I'm excited for the future of this game. It seems like it's going to have a pretty bright one. So I'm gonna keep going back to it.
And even now, like part of me is like, man, like because it helped that there was such a long break, and it's like I don't know when Flight Simulator X came out, but that was the last one. That was I think quite a while ago, and it's like, man, what does this this look like in another 10 years? Even like as like some of this map technology gets even more insane. This already looks pretty nuts.
Yeah.
And it also does make me feel like a bit of like a dad gamer now, even though I have no children. Because like my dad did not play many games, but he liked Microsoft Flight Simulator.
Yep.
So.
I wonder. I never really thought about exactly why it's a dad game. It is the ultimate dad game, though. It's just like, I don't know. I feel like so much stuff in my life feels out of control, and it's interesting to go be in this like very controlled environment and just be like, I'm going to control a complex machine, and I'm going to fly it from one point to another, and that's going to be my evening.
I never had any interest in going into like a small airplane until I played this game. I'm like, I see why this could be fun. I can see why it's fun to fly because it's like this complex machine, and you're like somehow the master of it. And I feel like I wonder if this would be a good thing for people who are afraid of flying because even, I'm not afraid of flying, but at one point I was, and I kind of only got over it once I did it more. But even like now, like I feel like I'd be more comfortable flying because I actually understand. Like, it's not just magic anymore, right? Like, I kind of get it a bit more. Totally. I know, like, if there was an accident and the pilots went down, maybe I wouldn't completely destroy the plane if I had to land it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think there was someone did a review where they're like, this helped me get over my fear of flying, I think. And I think what you said makes sense. Like, just understanding, like, each action has a predictable reaction. And the people in those they aren't just like, it's not washing over them. They're in complete control, and they know what to do in each situation. And actually, like landing, like I always thought landing must have been the most difficult thing because of like the stealth bomber game on the NES where I could never land that plane. And now it's
Top
like
Gun?
Top Gun also, but there was like a stealth.
Top Gun
bomber
was
game.
Mine. Yeah. Okay.
Same with Top Gun, but yeah, the stealth bomber game is the one where I tried over and over and I never got it. It's not like it taught you. But this game, it's like, man, you're going down, and it does feel wild to try to land that plane. And it's like you really are dropping this several-ton machine out of the air. It's really
scary the first time.
But it's like, even when like you feel like you're out of control, it's like, no, you're just lining up. You're putting the wheels on the ground. You're hitting the brake, and the plane doesn't want to crash. You can feel the plane is built in a way that it doesn't want to crash. It's all going to kind of work as expected. It's like that is it's a really nice feeling to like understand like that is how planes are built, and it's happening for me because of this game.
Do they have like any aircraft carriers just like out in the sea that you could potentially try to land on? Because that would
Oh,
be
that's a
kind of
good
fun.
question. That's a,
That would be fun just to
so
try.
I just straight up landed on the highway in one of the games I was playing when I had like the Airbus. I just landed on I-25 here in Denver. So I think you could kind of land on anything. Like they'll yell
Oh,
at you,
really?
but yeah. But so I think if you find one,
Now
I
do
think
need to land
it
on
might
that
not
land
work
strip.
though because it's an air, like if it depends on how fast you're going. Like a jet would need like the
Well,
strap
sure.
to catch you.
A smaller thing.
A
Yeah.
smaller plane should be able to land on it. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I bet people will find all that kind of stuff soon. Yeah, and okay, one more thing about this game. People are finding like how the algorithm sort of like makes up for the places where the developers didn't put a ton of work into things, and it's like, you know, the entire Earth is in this game. So of course they didn't hand touch everything, but it's like you go to Machu Picchu, and like Machu Picchu is the algorithm built it up as just like a regular office building, because it's like what is this thing? I don't know what this is, and it's like okay, so
So at some point they had to go. I was just thinking about Machu Picchu too. I was just thinking about I want to go to Machu Picchu, but like yeah, and I mean they have time to like they can go in when they want to and
right.
specifically model in Machu Picchu
And this
some
is
of
the
these
thing,
other
like
big landmarks.
the community has already done this with like London, I guess. Like you can go in and buy like a community built
Oh wow.
upgrade to like the London skyline, and it's like it does look better. It's like $8, but that's how these simulator games work, man. It's a marketplace, and it's gonna last for years and years, and you're gonna continue investing in it. I I know you said your PC hardware is kind of screaming a little bit with it. It's not like you have a slouch of a GPU or even a CPU, but uh, and I'm going to send you the HOTAS, but have you thought about buying any other gear for this thing, or is it just kind of like,
I mean, like, you mean in terms of like hardware upgrades?
I mean,
'Cause
yeah,
once I
anything.
have,
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I don't know. Can you easily like get the pedals to attach to the HOTAS?
Yes, there's literally a
Yeah,
port on the HOTAS where you plug in like just like a telephone line and it strings down, and that's where you get the rudder pedals.
yeah.
I will
Maybe
say like
we'll see.
so the way the HOTAS works is you twist it and it does the same thing. So I haven't
Yeah.
felt the need to get the rudder pedals, but I'm like it would be nice to have that whole setup, of course.
Yeah, I think I'll be good with the HOTAS for a bit. Like,
Yeah.
let's see how long I am actually playing this game. If I'm still playing it like in
Right.
December, maybe then I'll think about investing more.
When they put the VR in it, I'm definitely gonna like give it another like
That's gonna be cool.
long time, and it's like that. And at that point, it would probably be better to have like the yoke and the like the actual like throttle that is in most of these planes instead of like this HOTAS. It's like very much like a jet fighter stick. and
Right,
throttle.
right. It doesn't
But
necessarily make
what
sense for like a lot of
right.
things.
It's like it gives you more control and it feels good to fly the planes with these things. But it's like it's not like a yoke. So I am actually like looking at that stuff, but I don't think I'll actually pull the trigger unless like you I continue to play this game a lot. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
Mhm.
The other one is Battletoads. So yeah, like these are the two big releases for Microsoft this month so far. Battletoads, I think I was expecting to enjoy this game after playing it at E3 last year, but I knew a lot of people who had also played it, the same demo, didn't like it at all. So I was kind of like in this place where I'm like, was I just having a good time because I was like playing with Mike and this other
I
guy?
mean, who
at
doesn't have a
E3?
good time with me?
I know, yeah, exactly. I mean, we really enjoyed Neck too when we played at E3 too because we were like just like goofing off.
Because that game's a masterpiece.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. But I've been playing this solo on Xbox, by myself, and I am really enjoying it still. I haven't beat it, but I'm still really. I think it's good. I think it's a good game.
I think it's super. I think it's fun. I think like the combos that you do with the Battletoads all look good and feel good. Like the way their hands morph into different things. I think the way that you kind of use the tongue to kind of whip people in is good. I
Yeah.
think the game can actually be surprisingly and genuinely funny.
Yes.
Sometimes like that one early boss, and you kill him. He's like, at least I go to the afterlife. And they're like, oh no, there's nothing here. Like it's
Oh,
like
God,
kind
I
of
did.
dark.
Yes, that actually really made me crack up. That was very
that was
funny.
I was like, I love that game.
I'm like, oh wait, this is actually funny, and I'm like, but I was also like, oh, that's just the one joke that's going to be funny. But then like soon after, it's like, oh, the Battletoads, they've returned into our time, and they haven't been around forever, so no one knows who they are, and they have to get like real jobs, and a couple of them do whatever, but then the third one is like, oh, he's signing autographs, so maybe he did become famous, and it's like, oh no, he's just getting the autographs ready for the skeleton from the rare pirate game. What I can't remember. It's Sea of Thieves. The Sea of Thieves skull guy is like signing autographs because that's the rare game people care about now. And I'm like, okay, there's some clever stuff here, and it's consistent throughout. So I've been really happy with that stuff too. But I think actually like the combat feels good. It feels like it's like really impactful, and I think it's complex in a good way. I think like there's a lot going on, like you mentioned the tongue stuff. So I've been enjoying it. I think it's going to be even fun to play with other people. I think that's one of the big downfalls though. It doesn't seem to have online multiplayer, so it's kind of a bummer.
Like this, and I almost regretted saying something about it because it just attracted so many people trying to turn that into like a reason Xbox or PlayStation was better than the other. I don't know. I didn't mean that much by it, but this is just a game that like beat 'em ups already can sometimes be, some people just do not like them, and like this kind of tone of Battletoads where it's kind of silly and goofy. It's not going to be for everybody. And it's also not as good as Streets of Rage 4, which was also this year and was very, very good.
Right.
So, I can understand that. But, I think this is a good game. I think this is fun. One criticism I don't get is like the people are like, this looks like a Flash game, which to me is just them saying like it has really clean lines and solid colors. So I equate it with like Flash cartoons I watched as a kid. I was like, okay, I don't understand. I think that's a weak criticism.
Yeah, I think I agree. I maybe saw that when I saw the trailer the first time without playing it, but ever since playing it, it is not registered with me at all. It is, I think it's got really nice looking animation, especially when the characters transform from the toads into like a shark or something. It just looks like an actual cartoon. It looks like a Saturday morning cartoon, and it's cool. It's a great style, actually. It's a reason to play the game. It's not a detriment to it at all. So yeah, I agree. I don't get that either. I think it's a lot of people just kind of squinting at the game for 30 seconds, forming their opinion, and never actually playing it, which doesn't make sense because it's on Game Pass, and if you have that, you should just play it because it's good. Mm-hmm. So yeah. I don't know. Any other thoughts, or should we get on out of here?
Let's get out of here. We're running long. I already have the internet crap out once, so let's not test.
All right. Yeah, let's go ahead and tell people where they could find you on the internet, Mike.
You can find me on Twitter at Tokoto, TOLKOTO. Also check out 90s Disney, my 90s Disney podcast at 90sdisney.com. We had a new kind of episode today that's about some unbuilt attractions at Disney World and Disneyland that we wish were built. And then on the 1st, we'll be having our next kind of big full episode, and that's going to be about Rocket Rods, one of the most infamous rides in Disneyland's history in Tomorrowland. So look forward to that soon.
And I am Jeff Grubb on Twitter and on Twitch. And then you can get you can find this podcast along with my other podcast, How Games Make Money, on youtube.com/Jeffrey Grubb. You can also find that, wherever you listen to podcasts. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for us. Mike's video came back. Let's just get him here so he can wave goodbye to all the good people.
I just realized because I hadn't pushed that button again. I didn't realize I had to do that again.
It's all right. No one cares anymore. They were happy just to meet me, Mike.
Wow.
Yeah, that's right.
Rude.
I'll tell you one thing. I can't wait for Tony Hawk. I'm like, I wish it wasn't 2 weeks away. I keep playing.
Is it really only 2 weeks away though? That feels that's like exciting.
Yeah, it's like
Flight Simulator will get us there.
You're right.
Yeah.
Good point.
But I am excited, especially like Flight Simulator. I'm excited for just like some game that's gonna sit my ass on a couch and just go through that, and it's gonna be fun.
Yeah, a video game for sure. We'll talk about that real soon. We'll talk about more games, I'm sure. There's plenty of events still happening. That'll be on next week's episode. But until then, have a good one. Take care of yourself.